On the road with WDRB, I'm Dalton Godby, alongside these two fine gentlemen, Eric Crawford and Rick Bozich. As you can see, we're all nestled into our hotel rooms. Rick and I into different hotel rooms in Albany, New York. Eric, several hundred miles away in Greensboro, North Carolina. Rick, we'll start with you. We have a lot in store for us. We'll begin with the Indiana Hoosiers. We thought that they might have a challenge in this first round against Kent State. We also thought we might have a challenge driving all the way to Albany in what we believed was a snowstorm, but that didn't turn out to be a challenge at all.
13 hours and 11 minutes, and I think yesterday we were thinking it was going to be 16 or 17 hours. So, and that's with 3 stops: once at Wendy's, once at the gas station, and once at Jersey Mike's in Syracuse, where we did not run into Jim Boeheim. But yeah, could have been a lot worse. There is a bunch of snow on the ground. It is cold, but there's the trip. We made it all the way up. Cleveland, Buffalo, Erie, Rochester, Syracuse, Schenectady, which I've always wanted to say on television. And now we're in downtown Albany. And tomorrow morning we'll be running into Rick Pitino and Mike Woodson.
That's right. Heck of a journey. The team's also making the journey up here. The storm that came through this area seems to have blown right through. We had no trouble, as you mentioned. But Indiana and Kent State, a really good matchup. Rick, we talked earlier, and Jay Billis even picked it as one of his top upset predictions for the NCAA tournament. Kent State is a tough basketball team, and I think they're going to give Indiana all they want.
Yeah, I mean, they're 28-6, and their 3 non-conference losses were at Charleston, which is a 30-win team and in the tournament by 2, at Houston, which is number 1 in the country in the AP poll, by 5, and at Gonzaga in Spokane by 7. And we saw Gonzaga beat a lot of other teams by more than 7. So Kent State has won 9 of its last 10. They start, let's see here, 4 seniors and a sophomore. And one of them, Sincere Carey, is a 5th-year senior who's a really hard-nosed player. And they do shoot some threes. They really rank high in turning people over. They're 20th in the country in turnovers that they create off their defense. And they'll be real physical in the backcourt with Indiana. It's going to come down to whether Indiana gets the guard play to withstand that kind of defensive pressure.
It'll be nice to hear from players and coaches tomorrow at Media Day. We'll be bringing you all that on WDRB.com and also on our newscast in the afternoon as well. We're going to also be talking to that Pitino guy. I think he's connected with Louisville somehow or another. We'll circle back to that. But now let's go to Eric Crawford in Greensboro. Eric, this Kentucky team had a disappointing loss in the SEC tournament. They're looking to bounce back. Do you feel that this is a losable game for UK, just as it could be for Indiana?
I don't expect Kentucky to lose, but yes, it is a losable game because Providence is a solid team. They earned their way here, but I think it's important. I thought it would have been good for Kentucky. Some years the SEC tournament doesn't matter. They've had a high seed locked up and they really couldn't improve it. Usually they've played well anyway. This year, I thought it would have been good for Kentucky to win a couple of games, the SEC tournament, beat a couple of good teams, get some confidence heading into the postseason. That didn't happen. They lost for the second time in, 3 weeks to Vanderbilt. And so they had a long time to sit. Now, all that time to sit isn't necessarily a bad thing either for a Kentucky team that, has had its share of injuries. So I'm not going to say it was necessarily a bad thing that they have sat. Providence, to me, is not the team that's going to really challenge them. I think they lost 4 of 7 down the stretch, and they've not really playing their best basketball here at the end of the season. There's tons of rumors about their coach, Ed Cooley, being the guy at Georgetown. And people say, well, that doesn't distract the team. That doesn't matter. It does matter, especially in the day of social media. Everybody's looking at that kind of stuff. So, there are some factors on either side. I would be surprised if Kentucky lost this game to Providence, but that's not to say they can't.
Eric, another thing is that Kentucky got a very favorable draw in this NCAA tournament bracket. I was surprised. I think a lot of Kentucky fans were surprised with the 6 seed that they drew in this tournament. And, win a couple of games, get hot. That's where you want to be in March. Were you surprised at the 6 seed? And do you think that Calipari and the players were?
I was. I don't know if they were, but I was, especially when I saw Texas A&M come up early in the bracket as a 7. I mean, they finished second in the league, and I'm like, Kentucky's not going to get not going to be higher than Texas A&M, but they were. And not only they get a good seed, and you talked about them having a good draw, which I think it is. It's a good draw till you lose, and then St. Peter's was a good first round opponent until they couldn't beat them. But the thing about this is that they're not only got a good draw, but they're here without a lot of name brand programs and not a lot of programs that are known for bringing a lot of people with them. Now, so Greensboro Coliseum could be, home games for Kentucky, which a lot of road coliseums turn into, but there's no North Carolina team here. There's no other team with a huge traveling fan base that's here in either pod that's playing here. So I think that, this could be like a home court advantage for Kentucky if they can take advantage of it. I'll say this, the last time that we really thought Kentucky had a favorable draw and it looked like they were going to scoot right in, they won their first round game and then they lost to Kansas State, and that could be who's waiting for them in this thing too, if they advance.
Very good Kansas State team at that.
Yeah. So, from a good conference, definitely solid.
Yeah. A lot of things could happen. It's March. They call it March Madness for a reason. We are going to be covering all of that. We'll be here through the first and second rounds if both of these teams make it that far. But again, as I mentioned, tomorrow, Rick, you and I will be talking to Indiana, watching them practice, and also Rick Pitino and his Iona Gales. We'll check out their practice, hear from him. Your old pal, whom you covered for many years, do you expect him to be asked about his coaching future, and are you going to be the one to ask that question?
I'm going to give you the question to ask, and I do expect you to ask it. So I'll sit right behind you, and I'll have your back. Yeah, he'll be asked about it. He's already been talking about it. There was a story in the New York Post Sunday night where he was talking about how the president of St. John's is a superstar. Now, why would you say that unless you're interested in the St. John's job? And he talked about his relationship with the president of St. John's. It goes back to Providence College, which Rick Pitino has said on a number of occasions was one of his favorite places to work. So I'm sure the New York Post and New York Daily News guys will handle it all. And it'll be interesting to see what Rick Pitino's players have to say about all the commotion around their coach and him possibly leaving for a bigger and better job.
We'll wrap this up real quick. I'd like to ask both of you this question. You've studied Rick Pitino in his many years at Louisville and kept up with him through the coaching carousel the last couple of years. Do you think this Iona team advances?
I do not. I like UConn. I've liked them all year long. They're in the top 10 in most of the computer analytics. I know they finished fourth, I think, in the Big East and had a bad stretch in the middle of the year, but I think they're a really good team. And Iona's good. They're dangerous, but I think UConn will get through.
Eric?
Yeah, Pitino is dangerous when he has, some time to prepare, which he's had for this week. But this also is not a very good offensive team. From what I've seen him play 2 or 3 times, they are a very aggressive team. They play solid defense. They will get after you. If you let them get some momentum, they can get the press going like Pitino's teams do and get on you. But they're not a highly skilled offensive team. And honestly, they've lost some key pieces. So I'd be surprised if I'm not saying be surprised if they advance. You're never surprised if Pitino scores an upset. But I don't know if this is the spot for it.
Yeah. All of that will come to a head this weekend. We'll be here to cover it. We'll bring you all of that action on WDRB.com and on our newscast as well. As we mentioned, we are on the road in Greensboro and Albany, New York. Eric, I hope you get you some cookout and they have all the fixings there. For context, they didn't have anything last time Eric and I went when we were there for the ACC tournament. Hopefully Rick and I don't run into that problem here in Albany. Thanks, guys, for joining us. He's Eric Crawford. On the bottom, he's Rick Bozich, and I'm Dalton Godby for WDRB Sports.